welcome to episode number 240 of the ETPHD team podcast with myself and Georgia. Hi Georgia, how are you?
Hello. I want to say I'm fine, but actually I'm not. Do you know, remember last time we were on the pod together? You were saying, oh, if you sleep funny now, like your neck goes. Genuinely at the weekend, I slept funny and I haven't been able to sleep for a few days now. If I lie on my left side, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. Like the muscles in the front of my chest, my ribs, my back, all kind of squeeze. So I'm like I ran this morning and I feel better for that. So I'm just hoping like if I keep running, I'll somehow like run it out. But otherwise I'm good.
Oh my gosh, what is this 30s life?
I know,
What is
aged.
it? I know. Nah,
I'm
love
fine.
30. I do think of 30 as young. 30 is young, but like I definitely went through a phase of thinking, oh, I'm getting older. And then in the last year or so, I've actually genuinely started to think 30s is young, I think. Anyway, moving on. Anna, how are you?
I'm good. Me and Georgia were having a talk earlier about my acupressure mat. So maybe, Georgia, get involved with one of those to help.
It looks good.
It's dreamy. I've been doing like the Pomodoro and like 25 minutes of work and then 5 minutes on my mat, and it's been great.
Oh, nice. Here they have in the nail salons, they have like those really aggressive chairs that punch you in the back, you know, when you're getting the pedicure. I mean, I don't often get that because I don't enjoy it and it's a waste of my time and my life. But when you're on that chair, I do enjoy that, and I need to get my nails done tonight. So maybe I'll get one of those chairs. They're very, do you know the chairs that I mean? They're very aggressive. I don't feel that they're very relaxing, but they're, you know, sometimes like aggressive. Okay. I don't think there's anything to discuss today, is there?
Barbie film. I don't know, haven't watched it yet. Apparently it's very feminist. Quite excited.
I can't wait.
The Barbie one.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to flip a coin, and I'm going to see Oppenheimer and then Barbie. So I'll report back next week when I've seen Barbie. But
Okay.
But the only thing I know about Oppenheimer is that Oppenheim group from Sunset and Sunsets. I feel like that's not the same thing.
No, no.
It's the people.
But no, it's got great actors, and I'm very, very excited.
Oh, great. I'm not a big filmer, you know. I went to see the new, don't even know his name. Who's the movie producer / director? I say slash because I don't know which is it. Wes Anderson. Went to see his film recently.
What was that film called?
Couldn't tell you.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I need more. I can't go unless it's like. Even then, I was going to question, like, it's Guy Ritchie. He does films, doesn't he?
He does. We are absolutely atrocious. This is pretty bad. I like, do you know what? I just like a TV series. I like a series. I like a 40 minutes, go for a wee sleep type of vibe. I don't, more than that, I start to get a little bit distracted and bored. I am watching, and I'm obsessed with Hijacked on iPlayer, if anyone, not iPlayer, Apple TV, Idris Elba. So, you know, so he just had
on the plane. So this is how I catch up on TV. I don't really watch much TV, but I watch Gogglebox. So it's been on Gogglebox, and that's how I know.
Oh, classic. I would watch Gogglebox for Kath and Ryan.
You don't watch TV, but you watch people watching TV. I've never got that.
No, me neither, but genuinely it's how I catch up, because my friends in the WhatsApp group will always talk about the series and I'm like, I've got no idea, and then I'll see it on Gogglebox, and that's usually when I decide, okay, that's when I want to get into it because it looks good.
That's so basically like the Cliff's Notes of TV. Smart. Okay, let's get cracking on the questions. Georgia, do you want to go first?
This is one of Denai's clients' questions. How to keep this relaxed place when I'm back at school, when I'm back at work and school is back in session?
Weirdly, I've been speaking to a lot of teachers recently. I was speaking to somebody who just inquired to work with us who was a teacher, and one of my clients is a teacher. You definitely see there's definitely a phasic approach to things when you're a teacher, because like God bless teachers, they have an intense workload, an intense schedule, and it's very much like sprint well, it's not really a sprint, it's a sprint marathon, let's be honest. Like, it's not just like let's just do this for a week. It's intense. And we do work with a lot of teachers, so this is very topical at the moment. This is a very, very like unquantifiable, untangible answer, but I think a lot of power comes from realizing that you can create their own space inside of you. I quite like to think of it like your body being like this kind of, not armor, because we like to relax our armor, drop our armor, as Brene would say, but I like to think of it as like this kind of very loving, soft, slightly permeable skin, that, which that technically is, that keeps whatever we want inside, and we can have a certain weather inside, and regardless of what the weather is on the outside, we can manage our weather on the inside. And it's definitely not an easy thing to do, but I do like to think about, okay, well, I can have all of this chaos around me, but by keeping a couple of non-negotiables in place, my intention clear, I can at least manage, if it's gale force winds around me, that the water inside me is just slight waves rather than like, big crashing over waves. Can't get out of those types of waves. You're welcome for this incredible visual metaphor. I know it's just,
I was just thinking, so many metaphors today.
Oh God, I got a good sleep last night and I've had half a coffee this morning, so buzzing off my tips. So I think, but I think to do that, you need to have those things that support your calm, and that might be 5 minutes of meditation in the morning, or so you get your movement in every day, or I don't know, journaling, whatever it is for you. Mine are getting some breathing or meditation and getting outside, or getting some movement in. Those would be mine. But and reminding yourself of this, and reminding yourself that if you do these things, you can keep that kind of more peaceful place inside, and not telling yourself, oh my God, I'm so busy, everything is hectic, I can't cope, this is all too much. Because whenever you say those words, they are also permeating inside into your internal weather system. And if you're telling yourself, I'm stressed, I'm busy, I can't do all of this stuff, that causes ripples in those waves just as much as the wind outside does. God,
I'm here for it.
The writer inside me is just coming out.
It was beautiful.
I was going to say as well, I think, again, I've had this conversation with a lot of clients who are almost like looking forward to this break, understandably, but there is that worry that it's all going to go to pot when they go back to work. And I think trying to look at it in, right, I've got however many weeks off that is calmer, that I can really dedicate to building these habits that are going to support me when I go back to work, rather than kind of focusing on it's going to be so tough when I'm there. Like, now is the time where you are going to be building those habits, where it is going to feel easier to be able to implement them. And I think keeping that in mind rather than kind of thinking forward and worrying.
One of my clients, well, many of my clients are teachers, but one of my clients, we were having a call yesterday, and she had that exact fear, which was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have this break over the summer, and then I know how I want things to be in September, but how am I going to do it? And we actually used our call to kind of figure out what she wanted things to look like in September, and then backtrack to now and say, okay, well, we've got like these 6.5, 7 weeks now where you can start developing the habits, so that what you want in that 6 weeks time is kind of established here. And rather than trying to do everything at once and feeling that overwhelm, which is so classic when we have that kind of all or nothing mindset as well, it was like, okay, just imagine I'm still working to the same hours that I have when I am back at school. What actually is realistic, and what can I bring in now that will help me? And we've got like this 6-week plan of how we're going to gradually build these things in now, so that when it gets to September, it doesn't feel like everything needs overhauling or the world is being tipped upside down. It's just, we carry on, everything's ready to go, work is work, and you have everything in place. So I think it can be good to break it down, because sometimes we let things feel like a really big thing in our head, and it can feel overwhelming.
And I'll go for it.
if it is helpful to be aware of nutrients / if you value your health / you should also be aware of things like energy balance, how does this come into play with binge eating, where you might be eating a little more or eating sometimes things that aren't as nutrient dense?
If I understand this correctly, that they're not dichotomous, in that when you're overcoming binge eating, there will be certain tools that we might use, you know, bringing in foods that you've maybe previously restricted. They may be those kind of more processed, ultra processed type of foods. That's not negating health. If we look at health as an overall, if we look at health as like this umbrella term, it doesn't just include nutrients in your food. It includes your relationship with food. It includes your thoughts and feelings around food. It includes your ability to socialize around food. It includes so many other aspects. It's not just nutrients. But I think sometimes when people think about unconditional permission to eat, etc., which is often something that we will practice, again, when we're overcoming binge eating, people think that it's just about eating whatever you want whenever you want, and it's really not. It's any sort of good relationship with food work talks about honouring your health, and so that is a key focus, including lots of foods that are nutrient dense, and actively thinking about, how does this gift my body? How does this nourish my body? And it might be nourishing your body through nutrients. It might be nourishing your body through experience and through connection. There are lots of different ways that foods can nourish you, aside from just, this has lots of fiber in it, for example. So I don't really think, well, they're not dichotomous. I think they're that both of those concepts are very harmonious. Okay. I had digestives in the house, and then I emotionally ate on them, and they had all gone. I want to keep them in the house to have a good relationship with food and not restrict them from myself. But then I also want to have a food environment that serves me. Where's the line with this? Any tips? And she does have a fat loss goal.
So I also relate to digestives being my choice of food also, and they have their place. I would say, obviously, you're working anyway, but maybe check out my webinar next week on dieting healthfully. But I think it's important to keep those foods in the house, because I always would ask yourself, how would you feel if they're not, and if that's going to impact your ability to eat them mindfully when you do have them back in the house. But even when dieting, they can still be included. I think, like, working them into a snack, like I was just thinking, could you make them into some kind of cheesecake with yogurt, or just have a biscuit on the side? But I think challenging maybe the time at when you have them, like whether they're always the go-to in the evening when you're feeling run down after a long day. Okay, well, can I have a digestive in the morning with a cup of tea? So you've got that taste, you've got that satisfaction, and you're less likely to be so drawn towards them later on. And I've forgotten where I was going with that also, so I'll stop there.
I think also too on that, like, by having it at a different time of day, you're giving yourself the evidence that you can have them and not overeat on them. Because sometimes when you develop this belief of, well, whenever I have digestives in the house, I overeat on them, and that's the evidence that you have. But in order to show yourself that that's not necessarily the case, you have to then build evidence that that doesn't happen. And so, like what you were saying, of having them at different times can be super, super helpful. I think one thing to note is, when you've done work on your relationship with food, sometimes you start to see restriction as a negative thing all the time. And if you have a fat loss goal, it doesn't matter how you do it, you are restricting your calories. There is no doubt about that. What we want is to practice flexible dietary restraint. So you are mindful of your fat loss goals, but you eat in accordance with those, but you allow yourself the flexibility to have digestives sometimes, etc., and move on. But it's problematic when people try, if people try, and it's not this person, to diet without restriction, because it doesn't exist, and you're trying to do something that's impossible, and so it's not going to succeed. You can certainly diet without rigid dietary restraint, without food rules, without cutting out food groups, etc. And that's what we want to do. But it's impossible to avoid some sort of restriction. So maybe it's a case when you're dieting that you have fewer biscuits, or you have, I don't know if you can buy pre-packaged biscuits or whatever, but like maybe you have certain things in the house that are like, you have an amount of those that you have for the week, and that's totally like, that's fine, and you eat them mindfully and you enjoy them. But you have to give yourself that evidence of being able to do that really ideally before you then go into a deficit. And again, we're working together on this, so this is not specific to this client, but people sometimes go straight into a deficit whilst also trying to practice unconditional permission to eat, whilst also trying to keep foods in the house. But then that's a very difficult thing to do if you're in a deficit and you're hungry, and then you've got biscuits that you tend to overeat on. You then feel like you're failing in some way, which you're not. It's just that maybe you're trying to do too many things at once. But I think for this person especially, she's done a lot of work on her relationship with food, and it's about trying to not be so dichotomous with it, of like, I have to, not dichotomous is not the right word, but trying to not think, okay, I'm dieting and I have to keep all of these things that are a good relationship with food. I need to do all of these things whilst I'm dieting. A lot of these things for sure. But sure, you have unconditional permission to eat all the time. But when you're dieting, you have to accept that when you give yourself unconditional permission to eat, that sometimes if you want to eat more of something, it might move you away from your goals, and that's totally fine. But it's not the same as when you're working on your relationship with food, because it's like core working on your relationship with food solely, because with dieting comes some form of restriction, and that's unavoidable.
It's like just managing your food environment differently, isn't it? So you can still keep your favorite foods in, but like you might get those kind of half pack of digestives instead of the full pack of digestives, or you might have, like, instead of a big bag of Haribo, you can get like the little bags that come in a big bag, and you can say, okay, well, I'm going to have one of these when I fancy something sweet. So you're not saying you can never have these foods, but you're just being really mindful of how many you keep with you. And I was talking to a client about this the other day, because she was like saying when she keeps her water on her desk, she's more likely to sip it and stay hydrated, and when she's got grapes on her desk, she's more likely to snack on those when she gets hungry. But then if in her drawer she's got like various chocolate bars and sweets, she's more likely to kind of graze on those throughout the day rather than go and get a proper meal. And we were kind of discussing that line between, well, what's healthy and unhealthy to do when it comes to restriction. I was like, well, you're not denying yourself them by putting them out of your kind of office desk and go and put them in the kitchen. If you want them, you can go and get them. But you're just making that habit a little bit harder, and you're more likely to reach for your grapes if that's what's on your desk. And it's the same with kind of those foods when you're trying to diet. You're not saying, oh, I can't have them at all. It's just like, okay, just not going to have them around me all the time, so that it's kind of my go-to food.
Such a good point. There's a big difference between not having food in the house because you always overeat on them, and only having biscuits in your house, as an example. Like having fruit on your desk, having a fruit bowl. I don't think I had a fruit bowl the whole time I was competing or anything like that. I didn't even think about it, because I didn't eat fruit when I was competing, because pointless calories when I could have Oreos, because I had such a bad relationship with food. But like things like, do you have easy snacks that are not biscuits that you can have? Thinking about, again, inclusion rather than restriction, rather than just taking away the biscuits, can you make sure that you do have the grapes, the bowls of fruit, the Baby Bell Lights, whatever it is? Not had them in ages. I do miss them, to get some in the shop. Okay. Georgia, question.
How to practice self-compassion in the early stages of pregnancy when hormones are playing havoc?
I think that answers almost in the question of your hormones are playing havoc. So now is the key time that you want to practice self-compassion. And I wonder why you feel in this situation that self-compassion is harder for you. Is it because your inner critic is louder right now for some reason. Is it because you feel in general slightly more heightened emotions, and so your general self-criticism and your general difficulty with self-compassion is heightened? The same stuff still applies. You just need to give yourself even more grace, because it might be a little bit more challenging at this time because of those potentially heightened emotions. But how you practice self-compassion, self-kindness, mindfulness, common humanity, this reminder, especially when you're pregnant, that this is super normal, especially in your first trimester of pregnancy, and your hormones are potentially all over the place. And lots of people struggle at this time to maybe eat lots of vegetables, or sleep well, or exercise when they're exhausted, and that's totally okay. And that common humanity side of self-compassion is probably really, really important at this time. But how you practice it is going to be the same regardless of your circumstance.
Where is the line between acceptance of where you are, but also pushing to make things better? I have a health issue that means I want to leave no stone unturned to find improvement, but equally I feel like I'm resisting acceptance, and that is causing me stress.
Well, they're not dichotomous. It's something that I cover in EIQ. Is this paradoxical theory of change, of that only when you are content with where you are you able to fully make change. If you're interested in that, look up Gestalt therapy and his theories. And I think this is a thing. You think that if you are uncomfortable with yourself, or if you're discontent, then that is going to be a driver for change. But sometimes it can be, genuinely, sometimes it can be. But often other times when you just get to the point of, okay, well, I accept this is where I'm at right now, it brings a sense of peace. And when you bring that sense of peace, it's like, okay, now I have the space and the energy to take action in terms of what my goals are. So you're acting out of a place of progression and compassion and I guess abundance in some way, as opposed to acting out of a place of self-hatred and discontentment and self-criticism. One of them is going to lead to a much more fruitful and flourishing progress in the direction of your goals, and one of them is going to feel the opposite. And so I think trying to let go of this idea that you can't be content and working towards your goals is actually really, really important. We see this with body image, right? And you can be comfortable with your body and still want to change it. But if you hate your body, you treat it very differently than if you're content with your body. You're much more likely to succeed if you're coming from a place of love and compassion for your body in whatever your goals are, than if you're coming from a place of hatred towards your body. And sometimes that's an easier one to visualize than yourself.
I think as well, like, I'm wondering whether there's resistance of acceptance because you don't want to sit with the feelings of this is really tough right now, and just allowing yourself to acknowledge how you're truly feeling. Like, I know this client is working really hard to work on self-compassion whilst also kind of exploring different options to help her with her health issues, and it's a lot for anybody. And I think giving yourself that space to go, yeah, do you know what, this is really tough, and whether that's like grief tunneling or whether that's talking it through with someone close to you. But it's kind of that saying, isn't it? A problem halved is a problem shared. A problem shared is a problem halved. Wrong way around.
Same, very close.
So on it today.
Okay. George's, one of your clients' questions. Whey protein versus collagen protein. Full body workout every day. Oh, that's two different questions. Okay, whey protein versus collagen protein. Whey protein every day of the week. Full amino acid profile, best digestibility. When we're looking at protein sources, right? in an ideal world, each protein serving that we have would have at least 3 grams of leucine in it, a specific essential amino acid that is responsible for switching on our muscle protein synthesis response. And we have a certain threshold for that we want to kind of like hit, and then it like switches on muscle protein synthesis in a nutshell. And collagen protein does not have that in it. There's some cool research actually. I was looking at a recent meta-analysis around collagen and skin health and stuff. And again, there is definitely, it's funny how resistant people are to talking about collagen and the potential impact for potentially skin and aging and like the cosmetic side of things, because again, another meta-analysis came out that suggested that 10 grams of hydrolyzed protein a day, hydrolyzed collagen, sorry, a day over a couple of months may well have some potential cosmetic benefits. This is not me recommending it, by the way. We still have, like, there are flaws, fundamental flaws in that research. But it is interesting that more and more is coming out of that. But I would never ever replace protein intake with collagen protein. Think of that as more just like, if that's something that you want to invest in, that's like an additional supplement as opposed to having it instead of. The second part of our question was full body workout every day. Full body workout every day. If you can do a full body workout every day, then you're not probably training hard enough, and you're probably because you're not recovering hard enough. I'm not saying it's to do with your effort, but I'm saying it's to do with your sessions. So full body workout every day versus upper and lower splits.
So I would say with this client, she is working on moving away from training every day, but she does train 7 days a week. And recovery is definitely something that we're working on improving, so that intensity can increase during workouts as well. And we've looked at upper lower splits as an option to move to, so that your lower body can recover while your upper body is working, etc. But yeah, I mean, if you're just training for health and strength and you've got a couple of days or 3 days a week, then full body training will be perfect for that. And if you want to train more regularly than that, then upper lower splits can be great. There's no, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no like perfect way of training. It's really sort of like what fits in with your schedule and what it is that you enjoy, and then bearing in mind your goals. If you do want muscle gain, like training 7 days a week isn't going to help you get optimal lean body mass.
I think it's really important to like consider law of diminishing returns, because right now, not only is it it is hurtful for your body to train that much. It's whenever you train, you do muscle damage. You get an inflammatory response. It's short term. Over long term, it's great, but short term, it is causing these like basically damage, and then we get the response and we adapt from that, and we get really like positive benefits from it. But if you're training every single day or hitting muscle groups every single day, at no point are you getting the benefit and the recovery from that. You're way into law of diminishing returns, where more is actually you're doing a detriment to both your health and your recovery and your body composition, regardless of what your goals are. And it's also, of course, really important to think about, like, why do I feel this drive to train every day? Is it because I feel like I'm associated with calorie burn? Is it because I feel like it's better for me? Is it because I don't know what else I would do with that time? And yesterday, I forced myself to train. I was really like not in the mood, and I trained in my boyfriend's house, and he has like equipment in his garage, and but there's no aircon in there, so I'm not exaggerating when I say it's 40 degrees in there. And I walked in, and he's like, I've got the fan on. I walked in, and I was like, my shins were sweating within 5 seconds. I had barely even started, and I was like, this is fine. And I forced myself to do it. And I think back to, like, there was a time when I would have trained 7 days a week if I could. I think I trained 6 days a week, and I was genuinely like, this is what I need to do. I love training 6 days a week. This is like part of who I am. I'll never not be that person that trains all this time. And I genuinely felt like I felt good. I felt like I was making progress, all of these things. And yesterday I was thinking, God, I used to be that used to have those desires. And then yesterday I was like, oh, I'd much rather just do our puzzle. I don't really want to train. I'd rather fill my time with doing our puzzle or whatever, because I'm 36.
Gosh, that's so cool.
Welcome to my life. But I thought probably in the past, especially at that time, I definitely didn't want to spend more time with my boyfriend. I definitely didn't. I would rather train, although he's probably there at the same time. But it's important to think about, like, what is this, like, what purpose is training this much serving for me? Because sometimes logically we know it's not helpful, but we do it anyway. And I cannot tell you, you do not know how good your body is supposed to feel until you start recovering well. I can't explain the difference. You think your body feels okay now, but when you start training 4 days a week, or in my case 3 days a week or whatever, and most of my clients eventually dropped to about 4 days a week-ish, give or take. Once you start doing that and realizing how incredible your body feels, you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to feel. This now makes sense. We have to live it, I think. Georgia.
You mean again? Sorry. Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my clients, I have always been indecisive, but this has escalated in recent years. I always fear that I'll make the wrong choice and regret it. This is now so extreme that I'm often paralyzed and pit over even the smallest decisions, going back over it time and again and changing my mind several times. I know I need to make some life changes, but the fear that I'll make the wrong choice is stopping me from doing anything.
Paralysis by analysis. That's all I've got to contribute. Anna, go ahead.
Do you know, I think we have to accept that we're going to make decisions and they're not always going to be the right ones, but we can learn from them. And I guess I mean, when I'm struggling, like, indecisiveness is a big thing for me. When I'm anxious, am I going to make the right decision? But like, I'm working on my people pleasing, and again, that was a reason why I'd struggle with decisions, because what if what I chose wasn't what the other person wanted? And now it really does just show up when I'm a bit more stressed. And the one this isn't going to be a helpful answer, but I just flip a coin genuinely and just go, oh, let's see how it pans out. And that's what I do.
Oh, I love that. 50-50.
Yeah.
I just let go of that need of, like, it is letting go of that need to control, because you cannot control how things are going to go. You can only control your response to it. And for me, that was what's up to the coin now, and that's that.
I think what was I going to say? Wow, does that ever happen to you guys? And your brain just goes, it's like a bubble appears in your brain and scoops out all of the stuff and then just takes it out of your head, and then you're like, what's left? What's left? That just happened to me. However, I'm going to plug Monday's podcast with Ailey, because we spoke about this, because I will often say, like, not making a choice is making a choice to stay where you are. And you do have to own that. But a post that Ailey had put up that we spoke about on the podcast, I'm just going to read it word for word. Prolonging and procrastinating a choice is a protective response to your fear of making the wrong choice. But prolonging and procrastinating rarely leads to personal fulfillment. The truth is that even when you think you aren't making a choice, you are making a choice. You either choose or life chooses for you. And I love that. And this is something that you have to recognize, that you are making a choice right now by not doing the thing. And there's no judgment of that, because that might be the right choice for you. But the idea that you're prolonging making a choice because you're scared, that's not what's happening. You are making a choice. And right now, let's say, for example, the choice is whether to go traveling, right? Let's be really, like, superficial with this, whether to go traveling or whether to not. And you procrastinate on that choice for 6 months or a year. You've made a choice not to travel, and you've made a choice to stay not travel for that year, which is completely fine. But own that. You're not still thinking about traveling. You've made a decision to not do it. And there's a risk of that too. Again, I've been really superficial here, but there's the risk that you don't experience as much of life as you wanted to. or you don't make those new connections that you might have made when you went and stayed in a hostel in Spain or whatever. Like, thinking about just owning that of, okay, well, a decision to do this is scary, but a decision not to do this, which is what I'm making right now, is equally as scary. And I think, what is it they say? You never regret the chances that you don't take. Wait, my quoting ability today is just
We are on fire with it.
top tier. It's because I haven't had my morning walk this morning because we had our team meeting at 7 and didn't get out in time. So really, it's all of your faults. Anyway, you never regret.
No, you only regret the things that you didn't do, isn't it?
You didn't take.
Yeah.
There we go. There you
I
go.
don't know.
Jesus, we're going to end on that exceptional note for that question, I think. Georgia, you've got anything to say?
Nothing helpful. No, I think we've nailed it.
Unlike us, obviously. I say us, me. Sorry. Yours was very helpful. Anna, go for it.
I'd like to hear thoughts on alcohol. I've always had a funny relationship with it and I don't know my limits, although I'm not as bad as I used to be. I've lost count of how many times I've tried to give it up and then went back as people around me encourage me it's okay to have one, which I do agree with. But I haven't figured out how to do that yet. Right now, I want to cut it out for a couple of months to see how I feel without it, not with the goal of being completely sober forever, as I like the idea of being able to enjoy a glass of something here and there.
It's a funny one, right, with alcohol, because everyone's got a different relationship with alcohol, and for some people, going completely sober is the right thing. Some people can enjoy it in moderation. Some people can enjoy it in moderation, but they don't love who they become when they've had it in moderation either. Or yeah, and some people can drink more, and I'm not recommending that because it's not great for your health, but can have a good relationship with it and drink a hell of a lot more. I think I'm never going to recommend alcohol, and in the past there's been that research around, okay, well, moderate alcohol intake is fine, it's not detrimental to your health. What seems to be emerging now is that even moderate amounts of alcohol is probably not great long term. But does that mean that I would recommend nobody drinks alcohol? No. And I think that with any of these types of things, you have to pick what supports your life. And if you were living your life optimally to, never get sick and die as late as you possibly could, then you probably would never drink alcohol. You'd probably never eat ultra processed foods. You would probably you'd always sleep at least 8 hours a night. You would exercise exactly the right amount. Like, there's lots of things that you would do, right? You would have the strongest connections, all of these things, right? And it's about thinking, okay, well, how am I going to live my most wholehearted, full, joy-filled life? And if moderate alcohol consumption supports you to do that, then great, right? If you want to give it up for a while, give it up for a while. I think as well, when you're doing your work in your relationship with food, you're very mindful of introducing really strict rules around other things. So you think, oh, well, I have to have unconditional permission to eat, so I have to have unconditional permission to drink alcohol. And they're not the same. Like, it's not the same. Would your life be ruined if you never drank alcohol again? No. Would your life be ruined if you never ate again? Yeah, you wouldn't last very long. Like, they're very different things. And I know that's a really kind of, again, very surface level, kind of almost stupid argument to make, but again, early morning for me. What I would recommend is, I actually listened to Lucy Spraggan's podcast episode on Elizabeth Day's How to Fail podcast. I listened to it last night because she's just written a book, and I love Lucy Spraggan. I love what she stands for. I love what her message that she shares, and she is speaking about alcohol and her relationship with alcohol, and she's 4 years sober and kind of, her relationship with it. And I think everyone has a different relationship to alcohol, and only you know really if it adds to your life or if it takes away. And just been checking in with, like, am I removing it because of a rule that I've got, or am I removing it because I genuinely think it will add to my life?
The only thing I would add, and it's something that I was just looking to double check the page, and it's Sober Girl Society, and they've just got, it's not kind of forcing people to be sober or saying how great being sober is. It's a very kind of, would you say sober curious? Like, but it's a nice place to be. And they have like some bits on their page on like managing comments, and they do a weekly email as well that might just kind of, if it is something that you did want to explore, like might offer a bit more support in you feeling more confident in taking ownership of that decision.
I think the only thing I'd add to that was, you know, in the question your client kind of mentioned that they'd gone cold turkey, but then other people's comments had kind of drawn them back in again. And I suppose it's kind of thinking about, well, are you drinking because it's something that you would like to enjoy, or because you feel that it's expected of you when it comes to those kind of social situations, and thinking about what you want from your social situations and how you want to experience them as well. Like a few of my clients have kind of battled with the thought that when they go out they have to be the life and soul, and it's their job to be drinking and kind of like set the tone for the evening, and that they can't imagine doing that without drinking. So actually some of their homework has been around, okay, well, what do I want my nights out to be like? What do I want to experience? How does alcohol give to that or take away from that? And can I test out this theory? Can I go out and test out my theory of like, what's it like when I do that and I don't drink, or I drink within a range of drinks, or I just kind of go all in, and then actually figure out, well, which makes me feel the way that I want to feel and gives me the experience that I want, like on the day and the next day as well, and then using that to kind of guide them, rather than feeling that they're kind of looking to other people to decide if they should drink, and if so, like how much they should drink. So that might be something to kind of to consider when you're thinking about your, whether it's a night out or you're going for a meal or going to a party, as to like what is it that you get or don't get from alcohol.
Okay, what are some things that excite you, not work related?
Sunshine.
Seeing the cute little dog here every morning. Well, some mornings he runs and jumps on me. He's called Whiskey. His owner is called Jack. That's all I know. He's a very cute dog.
Whiskey and Jack.
I know. Wholesome, right? Very wholesome. That excites me. Puzzles excite me. My favorite TV program excites me.
My animals, my niece.
My nieces. Good one. Sunsets and sunrises excite me. Every morning I get excited when I wake up, especially here, that I get to go for a walk around one of my favorite places in the world and see sunrise. I wake up excited every day, which is nice.
I think, like, when I say walks, but like hiking's pushing it, but nice walks in new places. I like that. That's me.
Seeing my best friends excites me, and my family excites me. My new relationship excites me.
Trying new food excites me. Do you like when you go to a new restaurant or you go out and you're just like, what's it going to be like? That gets me very excited. Well, I'm obviously wiggling, so that gets me very excited.
Yes. Being in the sea excites me. We're very basic creatures, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing fancy.
It's literally people and animals and being outside.
Basic needs.
And food. Yeah. Well, look, we're just aligning ourselves with Maslow. I think if you can be excited, I really do think if you can be excited about the everyday things and you can create an environment of excitement for things like that, like you're winning. So we're all winning is basically what I'm saying. But learning to find the joy. We obviously use beauty hunting a lot with our clients, of learning to find the beauty and the joy in the little moments. The more you can foster that, the more you find gratitude and excitement for the simpler things. I'd much rather get excited about going in the sea than a new pair of shoes, although I do love a new pair of shoes, but it definitely doesn't bring me as much excitement as like my morning walk in the sun.
We're very simple people.
We are. It's great. Georgia, a question.
I have a question about going to the cinema. Sorry, I've lost my mouse. Um, so we love to take some snacks with us, and when we went on Friday, I made the conscious decision to purchase some of the smaller packs of sweets and chocolate, which I think worked really well. I don't feel like this was a binge, as I feel okay about some treats at the cinema, but is there another way to manage this? I mean, I think she nailed it.
Yeah. Why would you need another way? Sounds like you enjoyed mindfully some snacks and you had a nice time.
Yeah.
Isn't
And if
that
you didn't
wild,
have them,
though?
you don't have to have them when you go to the cinema, but it's part of the experience for some people.
But I love it though that when like people always think, oh, I can't take my own snacks. I'm like, there's literally no rules to say that you can't. And I don't like what the cinema offers, so I will take my own. Thank you.
When I was younger,
£5.
I know, extortion. When we were younger, my like 16, 17, my best friend at the time, she used to go to McDonald's and then put like a McDonald's meal and a McFlurry in her handbag. And she's like 4'11" and she'd have this big handbag and she's so sassy and she'd just smell like McDonald's and she'd walk into and then whip out her McDonald's Happy Meal in the cinema. It's like, that's smooth. She's the best. Yeah. I don't really have anything to else to add. Anna, question.
How can I work to let go of the need for control?
Well, my friend, that's a simple, light question. Great question. I think it's a mix of thought work, experience, and self-reflection of why you feel the need for it. Most of us in this world don't enjoy uncertainty. It's probably collectively our least tolerated emotions or feelings. So I think recognizing that you're not alone with that and is helpful.
So this is something that I've, not this client, but I've been working on with someone else, and we're framing it like progressive overload because that's what works for her, in the sense that like you're building up tolerance to letting go of control, to the feelings of uncertainty and all the discomfort that brings. And the goal for the last few weeks has been, like I said, we're building it up. So the first week was she asked her partner to plan an afternoon. She had nothing to do with the planning. She just went with it. And that was that. And turns out she had a great time. And oh, look, we're building the evidence that not planning everything yourself and needing to control everything can actually be nice. And again, it's been building up. So this week it's been kind of every other day she has she's letting go, a bit like the imperfect action that we talk about in letting go, and like lots of different ways. And again, it doesn't need to be a whole afternoon. It might be like 5 minutes of just challenging like yourself to do something that's unfinished, or sending an email without checking it for typos, and all of these things that bring up I mean, I still check and there's still typos, so but all of these things that if you can, I think, identify, okay, well, how does control show up? And it's a bit like perfectionism. It will show up in all sorts of ways, and just go, right, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. Might be once a day, might be every other day, but just build it up.
Yeah, it's like distress tolerance, right? A lot of our work is centered around distress tolerance and developing distress tolerance skills, where you can recognize an emotion and sit with it and not feel the need to run away from it or escape from it. And uncertainty is another one of those. So any way that you can begin to tolerate that, mindfulness is really effective for that, for just noticing it and not reacting to it and just kind of sitting with it. I think two things. One is sometimes catastrophizing can help for some people, because it's like, okay, well, what's the worst case scenario and something I don't have control over, like my partner organizing a weekend away? what's the worst case? We go somewhere that's absolutely balls, like, can I survive it? Yes, things will be okay. And I know I'm being trivial here, but again, easier example. But one of my clients she's incredible. She's been working with me for quite a while now, and she found herself emotionally, and she's like, I don't really know why. Like, she's leaving a job that she hates. She's going to do a yoga teacher training. She's going travel, and she's just her personal transformation in herself that I've witnessed over the last few years is just incredible, as she's like got a bit older and things have changed, right? And but at one point she was like, I'm emotionally eating and stuff, and I said, I wonder if any of this is coming from all of these positive changes are still changes, and they're still very uncertain. And I gave her some journaling prompts around uncertainty and stuff, and she was like, I didn't even realize, but it probably is linked to that, these feelings of uncertainty. Sometimes we don't make space for them because we're like, but it's all positive changes. And often when we think of uncertain, we think of, I always use pandemic as an example, like hell on earth change, or like you've just split up with your partner and you're uncertain about that. But we often forget about the fact that, like, quote unquote positive, happy things can also come with a lot of uncertainty and contribute to these feelings. So I think, like, it's important to hold space for excitement or everything else, any other feelings that you have, but hold space also for that uncertainty, and show yourself some grace and compassion. Say it's okay to feel uncertain. This is a feeling that is totally normal, just like any other feeling. I don't have to rid myself of it. And sometimes we get into this headspace of, I need to start being okay with uncertainty. I need to loosen this need for control. But sometimes it's like, well, maybe you don't need to fix it. Maybe you just need to sit with it. And of course, you are doing all of this like distress tolerance work with Anna, which is going to for sure strengthen your ability to do that. But maybe to some degree you could say, okay, well, I hate uncertainty. Okay, but life is uncertain, and acceptance of that fact, it's not pleasant, but acceptance of it and not trying to run from it can actually be quite freeing. Okay, I think we are going to leave the questions there. Thank you so much. Thank you both so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me along for the ride.